From the studio of Take One, this is White Space, a space for ordinary people to share their experiences on common human emotions. I'm your host, Susan Angami, and welcome to this episode. We are continuing to explore the topic of grief in this season of our podcast. And today, we have an essay sent in by Visa Rita Crocha from Kohima, who says that losing a loved one to death can be a profoundly humanizing experience. And to read her essay, we have in the studio with us Kivini Shohe, a filmmaker based in Dimapur. Here is the essay, Grief is Forever.
It's been close to 7 years since grandmother passed away. How fleeting are the years in between. It feels like she was here only yesterday, the memory of which is still vivid to me. It was the last time I held her fragile hands, the last time we sat together and laughed and also felt the warmth of the winter sun that shone generously on that day. I remember the view of the spectacular golden fields in the backyard. My native village really has the grandest view, and perhaps this was the reason why she chose to come back here, to spend the last days of her life. This was the place she knew like the back of her hand, and with such precision that even when she came to live with us in Kohima, I was so certain that she carried this dwelling place inside her heart. She lived to be 104. Really, what special grace it is to have such a long lifespan. 2 days prior to the day she died, I knew she wasn't feeling her best. But who would have thought that it would be the last time I would see her alive? I had to go to Kohima for an event scheduled for December 19 after spending days with grandmother in the village. She wanted to be home so badly, and we were home with her. But I had no clue that she would choose to go while I was away for the event. Was it because God knew that I wouldn't be strong enough to see her dying and watch her go? But now that grandmother is no more, what do I do? Where do I begin? How do I live? Funny how grief comes to you unannounced despite being convinced that you are mentally prepared to lose somebody you love. But then again, you are never fully prepared to lose a loved one. Grandmother passed away on a beautiful December morning. I wasn't there by her side when she breathed her last, but I knew with firm conviction that she would have appreciated it like she always did when she was alive. All I did that day was cry and cry and cry. I didn't know what else to do. It's like everything around me just moved me to tears. The touch of a warm hand, a kind word spoken, a condolence message, even from so far away, everything that reminded me of grandmother made me cry. I have lost loved ones before, but grandmother's death hit me hard. My paternal grandfather passed away a year after I matriculated, and my maternal grandmother died of cancer after I graduated, but while I was still away in a faraway city. Grandmother and my maternal grandfather lived with us for about a decade. Years that were filled with extraordinary days only because they were around to spoil us still, despite our adulthood, and especially for me, because of the rich stories they told and retold on my insistence on several occasions. Maybe someday soon I can bring them out in a book form in honor of their memory. Strangely enough, both died in December in the year of 2016, barely 2 weeks apart. Their passing made me incredibly sad. I had spent most of my childhood summers with my grandparents in the village, indulging in things that children of this modern world are now deeply deprived of. Perhaps it was grandmother's death, the last among the four grandparents to go, that gave me the acute realization that I would no longer have grandparents to call my own. Perhaps this was also the reason why I cried and felt the most when grandmother died. Over the years, the pain of losing her is slowly diminishing. It is no longer that searing, unbearable pain that I felt on the day she died. After her, I have lost more people I am deeply fond of. I mourn their deaths in maybe just about the same way I grieved for my grandparents, feeling like the world no longer has meaning without them, and trying so hard to understand how life gives you all these wonderful people to share your life with, and just as soon they are gone. But I have also learned that grief is forever. When somebody you love dies, you also carry the sadness with you forever. Maybe time heals your broken heart, and maybe quite effortlessly, even without realizing, you go back to living your ordinary days. But there comes another day when you are completely unaware and when you least expect it, and then there you are again in the company of grief. It's like having a broken leg that never heals perfectly, that still hurts when the weather gets cold, but you learn to dance with the limp, as somebody said about grief. For me, grief is the sight of sunflowers that grandmother grew in her fields. It is the company of cats that she loved dearly, or the sight of aeroplanes that astonished her being a child of 1914. Whenever I encounter someone whose nature resembles hers, whether it is being grateful and kind, I think I grieve a little all over again. Grief for me is also a memory of a loved one that I will forever carry in my heart. It's just always there in the familiar and ordinary things. Sometimes it's just the way a flower opens up, or how a particular aroma fills your kitchen. Sometimes it's a cup of tea and just the way it is served. Some days grief is calm, and on other days it is overwhelming. But it's always there because so long as you love and remember all the loved ones you have lost, you will forever grieve, and I think that's just the way it is. And sometimes it's a rather nice place to be because you are remembering them all over again and thinking of all the things that you have done together in this lifetime.
That was Grief is Forever, written by Visa Rita Crocha and read to us by Kivini Shoheb. In our conversation with Kivini, she talked about losing loved ones to death and the lessons she learned along the way. Here is an extract of what she said.
From my personal experience, I think I've come to realize that being kind to oneself and allowing time to heal is crucial in navigating grief. When you first lose a loved one, it's overwhelming. But as you keep losing, you learn to accept it actually. I think you get used to it at a certain point of time. So it's part of life and it's a fact of life, One thing I've learned is that since life is really brief, it has taught me the importance of cherishing our relationships while they last. Like the writer said in her passage, every moment, every little moment becomes special. So if we can learn to treasure those special moments and memories, that is the most beautiful part of life.
Thank you, Kivini, for your personal insights and that wonderful reading of Rita's bittersweet essay, Grief is Forever. Picking up on what both you and Rita have beautifully expressed, I noticed that pain of loss, at its freshest and fiercest, have their place in your stories. But something else that impacts me even more is the truth of the impermanence of our earthly journey. I feel the cherished memories of Rita's grandmother and her other grandparents are alive in the hearts of those who love them, and I, for one, will be looking forward to the release of the book written in their honor. On a final note, while we also harbor memories of those we have lost along the way, stirring up a host of different emotions, maybe it will do us good to ask ourselves, what kind of memories are we leaving for others to remember us by? Whitespace is a production of Take One. It is written and directed by Nitonyo Tongoy and Sesino Hyosha. The essay for this episode was edited by Kataila Jamir and sound recorded by Kedir Krityo Satsa. Signature tune by Nurhe Kate and original score by Tizo Nieka. The art piece for Whitespace was created by Limatola Langkomer. I'm Susan Angami. Thanks for listening.